What would you do if you were thrown into a cell for a crime you didn't commit? What if every morning you woke up wondering if today would be your last? For Iwao Hakamada, this wasn't a question. It was his reality for nearly 50 years. Accused of a brutal quadruple murder in 1966, Hakamada spent over 45 years on death row in Japan, longer than anyone else in recorded history. His story is one of injustice, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of truth. Today, we're uncovering the chilling details of the Mizuoka family murders and the flawed justice system that robbed one man of nearly half a century. Join me as we unravel the case of Iwao Hakamada. June 30th, 1966. In the quiet industrial town of Shimizu, Japan, the unthinkable happened. The Mizuoka family, father, mother, and their 2 young children were found brutally murdered in their home. The house had been set on fire, an attempt to erase the evidence. This wasn't just a murder. It was a calculated and cold-blooded crime that shocked the nation. The father, a factory manager, had been stabbed repeatedly. The entire family's bodies were charred beyond recognition. Shimizu was not a place where such horrors happened. The pressure on the police to solve the case was immense. The nation demanded justice, and the authorities needed answers quickly. Their focus soon turned to Iwao Hakamada, a 30-year-old former professional boxer who worked at the Mizuoka family's soybean processing factory. He was known to be quiet, reserved, and lived alone. To the police, this made him an easy target. Hakamada was arrested in July 1966, just days after the murders. The evidence against him was weak. There were no fingerprints or direct links to the crime scene. Witnesses claimed he had been acting strangely at work, but nothing tied him concretely to the murders. What followed was 20 days of relentless interrogation. Hakamada was denied access to a lawyer or his family. He was sleep-deprived, starved, and subjected to mental and physical abuse. The goal was simple: to break him. And they succeeded. After nearly 3 weeks, Hakamada confessed, but his confession was riddled with inconsistencies, and he later revealed that it was coerced. Investigators had promised to let him go if he admitted to the crime. Imagine being in Hakamada's position, isolated, desperate, and broken. Could you hold on to the truth, or would you say what they wanted just to make it stop? In September 1968, Hakamada stood trial for the murders. The prosecution's case relied on 2 key pieces of evidence. 1. His coerced confession. 2. A set of blood-stained clothes allegedly worn by Hakamada during the murders. But there were glaring problems. The clothes didn't fit him. As a former boxer with a muscular build, it was impossible for him to have worn them. Prosecutors argued that the clothes had shrunk after being soaked in blood and water. The timeline of events didn't add up. There were significant inconsistencies in how the evidence was handled. Despite these issues, the court sided with the prosecution. In 1968, Hakamada was convicted and sentenced to death. His life, as he knew it, was over. Hakamada spent the next 45 years in a tiny death row cell. Under Japan's execution protocol, inmates are not informed of their execution date until the day it happens. Every morning, Hakamada woke up wondering if today would be the day he was taken to the gallows. His cell was cold, small, and isolating. Over the years, the psychological toll was devastating. Hakamada developed institutional psychosis marked by paranoia, confusion, and detachment from reality. But while Hakamada's mental state deteriorated, His sister, Hideko Hakamada, refused to give up. She became his voice, tirelessly campaigning for his release. For decades, Hideko wrote letters, held press conferences, and rallied public support. "If I stop fighting," she once said, "the system wins." The turning point came in 2008, when advancements in forensic science provided a glimmer of hope. Hakamada's legal team requested DNA testing on the blood-stained clothes that had been used to convict him. The results were shocking. The blood didn't match the victims. Forensic experts found that the patterns of the stains were inconsistent with the crime. It became evident that the evidence had been fabricated. Despite these findings, the system resisted. Admitting such a massive error would undermine the justice system's credibility. Years passed, and the fight for a retrial continued. Finally, in March 2014, the Shizuoka District Court ordered Hakamada's release, citing the DNA evidence and the possibility of fabricated evidence. After nearly 48 years, Hakamada walked out of prison, but his conviction still stood. In March 2023, more advanced DNA analysis confirmed that the evidence used to convict Hakamada had been falsified. The blood on the clothes wasn't from the victims, and the clothes hadn't been worn during the crime. On September 26, 2024, the Shizuoka District Court formally acquitted Hakamada of all charges. On October 9, 2024, prosecutors chose not to appeal, making his acquittal final. Hakamada was officially exonerated after nearly 58 years of legal battles. Iwao Hakamada's story isn't just about one man's ordeal. It's a reflection of the dangers of a flawed justice system, a system that prioritized convictions over truth. For nearly 5 decades, Hakamada lived in a cell, not knowing if he would ever see freedom again. His case sparked national and international debates about the death penalty and the reliance on coerced confessions. It stands as a stark reminder of why vigilance, transparency, and accountability are critical in the pursuit of justice. Imagine hearing the words "you're innocent" after nearly 50 years. Would it feel like justice or a bitter reminder of what was lost? What do you think? Could you fight like Hideko? Could you endure like Hakamada? Share your thoughts below, and let's keep his story alive, because justice delayed is justice denied.